All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to one of my favorite shows to do. We seem to get the band together once every 6 months or so here. It's Davis Maddock, Pete Overzet, a Deposit Kingdom and Take Cast crossover with our buddy, NFL running back, Tampa Bay running back, Patrick Laird. How we doing, Pat?
Doing well. And just like I said before we started recording, Teddy's probably going to hop up here. So he's looking for a spot to get in my lap, but he'll probably be here the whole podcast.
Well,
For
awesome.
people,
Yeah,
this will be on YouTube, right? So people can see.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think, didn't Teddy make an appearance on the very first podcast we did with Laird back in the day?
I want to say Pat was trying to keep him out, and he was just not having it. He was just like, no, I'm not. I gotta get up front center. See, I can't let my dogs down here because they would. They're just not allowed in the office because they would. They'd just be up in my business all the time, and I can't have it. So they know it's off limits. I guess when you're the assistant to the quarterback, your office you don't really have a home office so much, so maybe it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty frequent routine. I just wake up in the morning, get coffee. Teddy starts to wake up. He'll come downstairs, and then I sit down on the couch, and he'll hop up in my lap right away, and we just sit there and hang out for an hour every morning.
It's crazy to me. I was just trying to do the math. When we did our first show, I mean, that was before COVID. When we went to the game when you were at, that was before
it was.
COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how
2019. That was my rookie year.
So it's been 4 years. It'll be 4 years in this fall that we did all that stuff.
Yeah, it's wild. It's weird because people will be like, "Oh, how long have you been playing?" And I have to say, I'm going into my 5th season, which is the most wild thing for me to say because I don't know. I don't know how long I expected to play, but just saying going into year 5 is kind of crazy.
It really is. So yeah, tell us about it, because we were trying to get this podcast scheduled. And one of the things we were wanting to get it scheduled before you headed off to training camp, which you're heading there Sunday, Monday?
Sunday. We report Tuesday. So I'll have a couple days to adjust. And then the first day, it's just physicals, checking in, some basic meetings. I think we might do a conditioning test the first day. So first days, I have a couple days to kind of adjust, kind of get used to the humidity. It's been kind of scary reading about these heat waves, going across the United States and pretty much the whole world. But I'll be ready. I've done four camps now in Florida humidity, so I think you can't really get used to it, but you know how to prepare for it.
Didn't Miami set the record 5 days in a row for their highest heat index or something absurd recently?
Probably. I mean, the front page of the Wall Street Journal yesterday was this overview of the globe and all the jet streams and why the water temperatures are higher and it's creating all these crazy heat waves. And then today there's I actually have it. They're spraying down.
Wow. An NFL running back reading the paper copy of the Wall Street Journal.
You filled out the crossword later or what?
It's honestly it's scary because hospitals and places I think Phoenix are just putting people in body bags with ice just to cool them down, it's super scary. So everybody be drinking their water and staying safe out there.
You know who's the real loser? I mean, other than all of our children who are going to have a limited number of places to live as the water recedes all over it. Dogs can't, dude. They can't. I actually just skipped the gym this morning and just went and took my dog on a long walk at 6 a.m. because it's that's it. If it's after 7:30, it's just too hot for her to literally be outside. I mean, imagine wearing a fur coat outside right now.
What's the temperature out there? You're in Kansas City, right?
Today it's actually not that bad because it's been raining all day, but the last week it's been 98 degrees and 98 degrees, but humid, just miserable.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
You said you have to do a fitness test when you get to camp. Is this how we get a blurb that says Patrick Laird is in the best shape of his life if you destroy this fitness test?
I like to pride myself on being in good shape. So I always do my routine now since minicamp ended. I got the conditioning test, what it's going to be. And then I just do it every Friday after my workout. So at the end of the week, I know that when I show up to camp, I'll be well prepared for it. And so I didn't do it last year in Tampa because I didn't go at the beginning. I signed in the middle of training camp. So my first couple years in Miami, it was pretty competitive, and I always tried to be one of the first guys to finish. I remember Myles Gaskin and I were just like going head to head, trying to beat each other on every rep. So that was good memories between him and I. And so we'll see if there's another person like that
what
this
is
year out
the
in Tampa.
Test?
The one in Tampa, it's a little bit more mild. I'd say it's they call them like cut. I guess you call them like cut 40s, basically like 20 yards out and 20 yards back in like 7 seconds, something like that. Or you want to get under 7 seconds with like a 30-second break. You do that 6 to 8 times. Then there's a couple-minute break. And then you do cut 35s, so 35 yards out and back, but it's more tempo. So it's kind of getting like longer distances, but you don't have to go 100%. So it's kind of getting a little bit of like sprinting, change of direction, and then a higher higher end volume with a little bit less intensity. So trying to like replicate what you might get in a practice.
Like 600 pounds like Nick Chubb.
No. In the NFL, like the strength training and the strength testing is a little bit more moderate compared to college. I remember in college, used to at the end of every training cycle, there'd be maxes and they'd be blasting music and guys would be doing smelling salts trying to hit the high weight. Whereas in the NFL, like everybody's strong, everybody's athletic. So really it's just more about injury prevention. And guys will still push weight, but they don't like test us in terms of strength.
All right. What's your mindset heading into this year? Because like one thing that dawned on me the other day, and Davis and I have collectively drafted hundreds and hundreds of fantasy teams already for 2023. But the fact that you are a running back on what I assume Davis would agree with me is probably the most wide open running back depth chart in the league. Obviously, Rachaad White, an exciting second-year guy. But as far as like kind of the depth there, it does seem like if I could handpick where I would want to be on a depth chart, I would pick the Bucs for my best chance to get some playing time. Do you feel similar about this year? Are you comparing like other spots across the league, or do you just have your head down ready to go?
I'm optimistic about my chances and my opportunity. I think, yeah, I agree. It's a great place for a good opportunity. You of course have to show up and show that you can play and fill whatever role they want you to fill. I'd say if my guess, I think Rachaad's going to be the guy. He did a lot of really good stuff for a rookie last year, and I think he's going to get even better this year. We signed Chase Edmonds. We have Keyshawn Vaughn, and then 2 new rookies. And so it's really hard to judge like a rookie during OTAs because there's no pads. It's just helmets. And so, but those 2 kids that came in, they look good. So for me, in terms of like personally, I think I'm just going to try to find a role, whether it be special teams, third down. I would love to run the ball, catch the ball, do whatever they want. But it's hard. You can't predict and go in, oh yeah, I got a really good shot, I'm gonna make the team. You just kind of have to like go find your role. And I think that's my mindset going into camp.
Well, it was different for you last year. I guess I don't know how much do you guys practice special teams, because you were like core 4 in Miami, but you were on the practice squad last year. So like how different is your practice experience when because your positional designation is a running back, right? But like a lot of what you spent doing in Miami was playing core 4. So how much does that change like literally your day to day of like going in the office? Like, are you doing totally different stuff at practice?
There's like special teams periods and meetings. So I'll be in all those, participate in all that. I think it depends on the guy. Like for me, I definitely want to put just as much of an emphasis on special teams as I do on offense. Whereas a guy that knows they're going to play a ton of offense or a ton of defense doesn't necessarily have to do that. And so just me knowing my role, I know that I have to put just as much emphasis on special teams as the offensive stuff. But in terms of time, like it's pretty much dictated, like meeting time, pretty much everybody's in there. Like if you're, a star player that doesn't play special teams, you don't have to go to the special teams meetings. You go to your position group meeting early and do that work or go do treatment, whatever. But in terms of practice, like pretty much everybody's involved in the special team stuff. So it's not like I have to go, do extra. I mean, I might do a little extra in terms of like studying and watching film with special teams, but in terms of like practice time, it's pretty much all set in place.
Because I would also say with the Bucs too, there's, I would say most of the quarterback situations in the league are like fairly settled, but I would say in Tampa Bay, there's like a legit battle. They bring in Baker Mayfield. Yeah. The team's also been talking up Kyle Trask. I know you're not going to pick a side here, but talk to us about the QB situation in Tampa.
Yeah, it's going to be fun because I don't know if I've ever been a part of like a legit going into training camp.
There's got to be a weird feeling in the locker room, right? To not know who the quarterback is.
I don't know if weird is I think it's just like a topic of conversation. Like, oh, hey, Trask looked really good today. Oh, Baker looked really good today. Yeah, it's like a topic of discussion. I don't think it's weird. I think we're all so used to competing in our own positions.
Right.
There's a couple positions here and there, like on every team in the NFL, like, hey, we know Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to be starting receivers for us this year. But there's always that battle for the third spot and maybe a guy trying to get into that second spot. So like every position group kind of knows what it's like to compete for a spot. And so it's just like a nature of the game. I just think at the quarterback, since there's only one quarterback on the field at the time, it's such a heightened thing and such a topic in the media. And so it's a topic in the locker room. But just to say, like, those two dudes they're both really competitive. I think everybody has seen how competitive Baker is. Kyle is kind of like more of a quiet, reserved guy, but I think he's just as competitive, and he's always in the quarterback film room studying. So it's gonna be interesting to see. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm cool with both of them. Maybe if they both end up playing this year, that'd be cool. So I don't know. I have just as little insight on it as everybody else, but I'm just gonna go out there and work with both of them.
Because to put it in our fantasy lens, because we'll draft Chris Godwin, we'll draft Mike Evans. I even take Kate Otten, at the end of draft sometimes. But it's hard to take which quarterback, right? Because you'd like to stack them up. You want to make a bet on the team when you take those wide receivers early. But then you're sitting there looking, you're like, I have no clue if it's going to be Mayfield or Trask. So often you just don't end up selecting a Bucs quarterback in drafts.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know, like, we threw the ball a lot in OTAs, and I think that was to get a sense for where the quarterbacks lined up,
where they were,
and where they were with the offense. And it's a new offense too. We have a new offensive coordinator, Dave Canales from Seattle. So you kind of have to figure out, who can understand and figure out the pass concepts. And then also with OTAs, it's helmets only. So, you don't have pads on. You can't really get off and get good push in the run game. So, it's going to be interesting. I'm kind of excited to just be a part of it and see how it plays out.
Of learning from a new offensive coordinator, because the verbiage is different. And I assume they're not going to like a zone blocking scheme, so maybe it's not that different. But you have to learn different pass protections, right? Because like the way they call those are going to be, I guess it's sort of this thing that's thrown out by people who think about football but maybe have never played. Like, player X, Y, and Z has had this was always said about Sam Bradford, that he had three different offensive coordinators his first 3 years, and that would have basically just been impossible. And Baker, actually, they switched his offensive coordinator up 3 times in his first 3 years. So is it as hard as it sounds? Learning like not only new plays, but a whole different way to think about round concepts and in even different names for the same thing.
I think especially for a quarterback it is. For a running back, there's zone, there's like inside zone, outside zone. Yeah, then there's like power schemes, counter, and they kind of play off of each other. And there's like pin and pull plays, but at the end of the day, it's like you get the ball in your hands and you're reading your blockers. But you still need to learn the new verbiage. You still need to learn all the concepts. And then the pass protection stuff that's pretty. There's a certain amount of ways to do it, but the way you call it and the way they point things, it can be different. But once you pick up like the basics, it's easier for a running back. for quarterback, it's just like they have so much information they need to process. Like, first of all, they need to just understand where everybody's going to line up, because that's really important. So like there might be a concept, or there might be a formation where it's like trips right, like you guys would see trips right, but the Y and the Z are switch positions. And so depending on where the Y and the Z and the F, if it's a trips formation, are lined up, you need to know which receiver is going to run a certain route and concept. But if the Y and the Z are flipped from like the inside to the outside, and it's the same concept, they're going to be, it's different players, or it's the same player, but they're going to be running different routes based on the concept. So they need to process all that. Then they need to look at all the defense. Then they need to worry about the shifts and the motions. And then they need to point out who the O-line is going to block. So they have to process so many different things. And so I understand, like, when a quarterback has to have a new OC every single year, they have to start from ground level and rebuild that knowledge. Whereas I think Joe Burrow, right? He's had the same offensive coordinator the last couple of years, and you just see he has this like great command, because at a certain point, like towards the end of the season, you hear a formation, a concept, and you just like walk up the line of scrimmage, and it's like second nature. But when you start from ground zero, you got to like think through that whole process again of like, okay, I know where this guy's lining up. I know this concept. Now I see the defense. Now I know where I'm going to send the O-line for pass protection. And so the longer you have that language in your head and are playing within the same system, the better grasp. And just like the freer you're going to be able to play. And then quarterbacks are all about decision making. So the less you're having to think through those processes rather than it being second nature, the better you'll play and the faster decisions you'll make. So, but again, like Baker and Kyle, and then we signed John Wolford from the Rams. Like those three they're all pretty sharp dudes, and they're all.
John Wolford can play a little bit.
Yeah, you can sling the ball around, and he's smart. Yeah. He's like definitely a good dude to have in the room. He's one of those guys I can just go up to at any time and be like, hey, like, why are we calling it like this? Or, who should we make the mic point on this pass protection? And he usually has the answer pretty quickly.
Well, the offense is like actually full of stuff to compete with, because like, Cade Otton is a second-year player. It's not like he is like locked in as the starting tight end, and even like the third wide receiver, because Russell Gage is still there, but Julio Jones is retired. Like I don't think Russell Gage probably in week 1 is going to be your guys' like third wide receiver, but like feels like if a couple guys had really good camps and the coaches really took notice of it, because there's got to be this feeling of just like we're really starting fresh here without Tom Brady. Like that was like a crazy trip that we all just went on with Tom Brady, and now it's like everything is way different when a guy. I mean, Tom Brady is larger than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady is almost even larger than the NFL. Like he is an entity in and of himself, and now he's not in that building anymore. Like that's got to just be a total sea change.
Yeah, and I think it's almost giving like a chip on guys' shoulders on the offensive side of the ball. Like Chris Godwin, I remember like this offseason had a couple times where he told the group like, hey, let's just go surprise people. Like people are writing us off as an offense. They don't think we're going to be anything without Tom. Like let's just go show people that we still have a lot of tools. Like obviously Tom could do so much at the quarterback position. But we still have a lot of pieces coming back and a lot of good players. And so I think the idea is like, hey, let's keep it rolling on offense and show people that, we're better than they expect.
Well, Laird, I don't want to bury the lead too much, because the reason you reached out to us to come and do this show today is because you are going to announce that you aren't going to be playing under your $1 million salary contract this year, and you're actually going to be holding out and demanding more money in solidarity with the other running backs. I mean, the floor is yours.
No, the reason I reached out to do the podcast is I just want to catch up with my friends. But
what a guy.
You guys can put me on the spot with the running back market and the news.
Okay, well, I
have
brainstormed a couple solutions that I've not fact checked with anyone, and I want you to gut instinct tell me how stupid they are or not.
Okay.
First one, if your positional designation when you enter the draft, you and your agent, you send a card in or whatever, it's running back, you have a 2-year rookie contract. Everyone else, same deal, 4 years with the 5th year option if you're a first round pick, but you can only have team control over running back for 2 years. Thoughts?
Yeah, I heard this one. Do you guys follow like Mike Florio, the PFT guy, Pro Football? Yeah. I was reading something and watching a video that he put out, I think, within the last couple of days, and he kind of went through these different scenarios, and he talked about that one. I like that for the reason that guys can take advantage in their prime years of getting. So they're producing a lot of value on the field, a lot of production in their first few years. A lot of running backs are showing that, and they can renegotiate their salary based on their first 2 years of production. Which I think that solves part of the problem. The flip side to that is like then teams aren't going to want to use draft capital on a running back.
Running
so
backs
early.
will for sure be drafted later in this system.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, which kind of that's already taken place. I mean, I think there's a couple running backs taken in the first round this year, but for the most part, running backs like the last 5 or so years have been going closer to the 3rd to 5th round, like a lot, and then. You see in the 5th to 7th round, teams are just snapping, like picking up running backs and then hoping one of them, turns out to be a solid player. Yeah, I think that solves part of the problem in terms of getting your value early in your career while you're the most productive. I'm sure there's, I'm happy to like talk through all the scenarios, but I actually haven't even fully figured out how I feel about all of them because there's probably some unforeseen.
There's always unforeseen
ramifications that you just can't think of now. That
the trade-off later. So the trade-off with this one is very obvious, which would be this works out for Saquon, this works out for Derrick Henry, this works out for Christian McCaffrey. Might not work out so well for Isaiah Pacheco, for Patrick Laird, for Rachaad White, even your teammate, they might. So Rachaad White starts this year. He's good, but is not like an all pro, like 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. But the team decides, actually, you know what? He was good, but we can probably find something similar. So let's just let him walk. Right. So it's actually, it sounds good on its surface, but it's actually really only solving the problem for like maybe 8 running backs in the league. And then there are 50 other dudes who end up with their contracts ending before they wanted it to.
Yeah, I know our union says that they try to negotiate on behalf of like the typical the median player.
They do not.
Yeah, I don't know. So if that only solves the problem for the top 10 guys, I don't know how much momentum you can get for something like that. And like you said, for a guy that's been solid in his first 4 years of his, he gets drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round, and he's been solid. He's put up 600 to 800 yards a year. But like you said, at the end of his 2nd year and his contract negotiation comes up and they only got 600 yards out of him the previous year, he doesn't have that 2 extra years on his contract to prove himself to be a great back in the league and get a better contract that he might have gotten if he had 4 years of a resume to put out there. So that's an interesting one. The one I kind of liked, so the one that Florio talks about is he's the running back position needs a separate bargaining unit within the union or just outside of the union.
You guys got to unionize. There's got to be the running backs have to unite.
I don't even know how that would look and who would represent us. Would it be wholly separate from the NFLPA or would it be a division within the NFLPA? I don't know how that would look and who would be representing us and talking for us and would we go to the owners separately? Would we go to management separately? That one logistically I feel would just be the hardest to pull off. And I feel our union, I don't know what their stance is on that, but I have a feeling that they would try to block that. They would want every position group to stay together. And once you start branching off the running backs, then what other position is going to come out? Are the linebackers 5 years from now going to come out and say, hey, we take the most beating, we should have our own separate bargaining thing?
It seems insane on its surface. If you were oh, no, I seriously think there should be a running backs union. But that's really the way unions work in real life. There are individual charters of for example, I don't know, the plumbers union or whatever. They're individual chapters. But then even the plumbers union is part of a larger union group as well. Like they're all partitioned that way. And I know people are so there. I'm sure there are some anti-union people listening to the show, but the idea that running backs, it's just because on the face of it, it's just so absurd that Saquon Barkley could get the ball 30% of the time when the Giants snap the ball, and that sure, maybe the idea that Eric Gray could come in and the Giants would maybe win the same amount of games or whatever. It doesn't alter the immutable fact that Saquon Barkley has to get tackled 300 times a year. And that in and of itself is worth something, right? And should be compensated fairly. And the running backs union, I'm for it.
Yeah. The other idea I've seen floated around is like a pay for performance thing. Not based on play time, but based on production. That one seems attractive to me. The only problem I'd see is like, all right, teams are like, all right, like, yeah, who pays for it? Like, is it going to come out of the other player performance stuff? So, like, are we taking money from other positions? Because the rest of the players aren't going to like that. Is it going to be additional money taken out of the shared revenue thing? And then from there, it's like, all right, so all running backs are going to be paid on performance now. So then then when teams go to bargaining for a contract coming up with like a star player, are they going to say, hey, Saquon, we're going to pay you $8 million, but with this new player performance bonus that you have the potential to get, if you get 1,000 yards and you get 10 touchdowns, now you're going to get an additional $7 million or whatever it is. So you have the potential to make $15 million. And every running back's like contract, what they could have gotten in the market without this player performance thing will go to their base salary will go to a lower level. I could see that happening. That's kind of like the downside of it. So I don't know how they would structure it. I think it's so complicated but it's going to be an interesting thing. And then I don't know if you guys saw the group chat of running backs. I guess there's like a group chat of running backs. For whatever reason, I wasn't added to it. I don't know why.
Does Derrick Henry not have your number, dude?
I guess not. Someone needs to hit him up and add me to that group chat, and I could throw my ideas out there. But no, it's a tough thing, and it's weird because it's like guys they're paid so well, right? Like everybody in the NFL is paid so well, so it's like a weird it's a problem that like almost no one is going to feel bad for people. You know, it's like, oh, you're turning down 10 million because you believe you're worth 15. But at the end of the day, like any job you have, people want to be paid what they believe they're worth, and so.
And
I'm sympathetic.
With the billionaire over the millionaire does not make you the moral warrior of justice and fairness in the universe that you think it does. Like labor always deserves to be compensated fairly. Like just because you have capital doesn't necessarily mean that you should keep it all. I always find that like because of what you just said. Like I'm sure there's some dude out there who's like, he should just be happy to be making money playing a kid's game. Like, how dare he? But then, like, no one wants to analyze the fact that the Giants could sell for $8 billion tomorrow night if they wanted to. Like, it's so absurd.
Yeah.
So how do you, like, if you put yourself in the shoes specifically of, say, Barkley or Jacobs right now, and, you know, Barkley just went on a podcast the other day and had some pretty pointed words about kind of saying, like, what's my leverage right now? And I think that's the problem, right? They don't actually have a lot of leverage. Are they going to sit out, not take 10 million, get older, you know, have the potential to get replaced because the team moves on? Like, it's a really tough spot. Like, if you were in that spot and thought you deserve more money, like, how do you play it? Because some of the holdout stuff to me always feels kind of like saving face. Like, I want to show you that I deserve more, but like, ultimately I'm going to come and put the pads on and play and collect my checks. Yeah.
It's so hard for me to put myself in that position because I'm in the position where like, I'm happy because I'm on a league minimum this year and it's over $1 million. So it's like, me personally, I'm completely fine with playing for that. Which I don't know if I should say because it kind of, I don't know if that it's a weird thing because it's like this whole like the depressed market for running backs. It might be good for me because I'm a guy that can show up and I'll play for the league minimum, and I'm I'm super happy to do that. And
the Giants trading a conditional 7th round pick for Patrick Laird because Saquon
So yeah, it's like a weird thing for me to like try to empathize with. But I get, yeah, like I think JC Treader, I don't know if you guys saw this, like the NFLPA president, current president for the players. He was on a podcast or some interview or something recently, and he floated the idea. He's like, I can't really publicly recommend this, but he's like, I could see some guys gaining leverage by showing up and having some sort of like injury that happens, and then like teams can't really prove if they're really experiencing that, and they just show up, do what they can at practice or rehab or whatever, but then they don't play because they're injured. It seems like it's gotten to the point where some guys might feel like that's their last resort. I don't know personally if I would do that. But yeah, it's like it's a weird thing for me. It's like if teams are looking for cheap running backs, then I'm one of the dudes that'll step up and be a cheap running back. So that's why I feel like we need to be creative with some sort of solution to get guys compensated in a fair way for the production they put on the field and for their team. Like it's hard to argue that Saquon didn't help the Giants win more games than they would have otherwise. Mm-hmm. Like it's very likely that he impacted a few wins versus losses last year. And so a guy like him is going to want to, get compensated for that.
That's even one of the problems then kind of with like the running back union idea, right? Because there's different running backs within that strata that, have different goals and desires or realistic outcomes that optimizing for what's best for, say, the top 10 running backs in the league might not be what's best for the other, remaining set of running backs.
Yeah, like a guy that might be set to make, he'll get like a league minimum. So like he'll get like $1 million. And then he might get like a $500,000 signing bonus. Like he'll be due 1.5 this year. But then you get into a situation where we bargain on behalf of the top 10 and the team has to end up paying a guy $15 million that year. So now that 1.5 that this second string guy was due or likely to make, now the team's like, well, we can only afford to give him a minimum with no guaranteed salary. So he's just gonna have to make the team. So first string running back's going to get all the guaranteed money, and then 2, 3, and 4 just have to make the team on the league minimum. So I don't know how it plays out. I mean, maybe there's something where everybody can kind of win, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's going to be interesting how it plays out.
It is also harder with quarterbacks making so much money, right? Like the Burrow and Mahomes, and I guess Burrow not yet, but Burrow very soon. These guys take up like Mahomes is less because of the way he structured his, but a lot of these guys are taking up 30% of a team's salary cap. And when one player of a 53-man roster is eating that much salary cap, I mean, even like, T. Higgins and the Bengals are going to have a real negotiation, right? I think T is going to end up getting his money, and they would love to pay him what he asked. I think like their GM said what they were asked. Someone was asking about T, and the GM said like, everyone wants a wide receiver, but go find your own, right? Like we love T, but the Bengals next year are going to be paying Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins about 45% of their salary cap. Those three guys. That's tough, right? Because obviously running backs are sort of at the center of the conversation, honestly, because of fantasy football and people know who all these running backs are. But there are interior offensive linemen who get beat to shit 17 games a year, and I've seen really smart football people make the argument that actually interior offensive linemen are probably underpaid even more dramatically than running backs based on the amount of work they put in, how hard their job is, how irreplaceable they are, and stuff like that. But interior offensive linemen do not make wide receiver money at all.
Yeah, that's another one. It's like interior O-line is like another position where teams feel like they get their surplus value from the quarterback and the receiver, and then they can plug and play the interior O-lineman.
Analytics ruin football. Let's just be clear about it. Analytics just ruin football. All these nerds who said running backs don't matter and you can't win unless you have this great quarterback, like nerds ruined football. They came for it. They got their revenge. The nerds got their revenge on the jocks of like Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey by ruining the sport.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're a GM though, like I kind of buy that argument. Like if I was going to build a team I mean, if I was a GM, I would build a team out from like the interior out, and then you gotta get lucky with getting a good quarterback. But like having an O line can help you win like 7 games a year. Like just having a beast O line. So yeah, I mean, if you're a GM, like you're gonna try to hit a home run on a quarterback because you can't go far without one. And then it's a passing league now, so you need weapons on the outside. And then if you're on defense, like what's the best way to stop a really good offense is you got to sack the quarterback. So like you're going to invest in edge rushers, and then you know that the passing game is important, so you're going to get lockdown corners. Like I get the argument, and it's so tough for them to be in that position to like they have a pool of money that they can use, and it's limited, and they got to like bargain or not bargain. They got to negotiate against all these other teams that want their best players, and so you're going to pay for the best pieces or the pieces that you feel like give you the best chance to win. And that's I think how we ended up here with the low pay for the running backs.
It is crazy though that this year for the draft was a little bit of a throwback with 2 running backs going in the top 15, because even a few years back when Jonathan Taylor was one of the better running back prospects we had seen in a long time, and he went in the 2nd round. And then this year you get Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs going. It felt like, oh man, we're kind of like back to those days where even a guy like Melvin Gordon, is in the 1st round, even way back when guys like Ryan Matthews. I don't know why the Chargers picks are on the top of my mind, but you used to just see way more 2nd, 3rd running backs going in the 1st round.
Yeah. A lot of that has to do with like a team really loves a guy and they're just not sure if another team loves him just as much.
Yeah.
And so where they rank him as a 2nd or 3rd round guy and they go, well, just in case someone has him as an early 2nd rounder, we're going to just take him and then hope we hit on the receiver we're going to take in the 2nd and 3rd round, or the corner we're going to take in the 2nd and 3rd round. It's all game theory. It's pretty interesting.
That dynamic you're describing, I think, is probably under-discussed when, back to Davis's point about all the nerds and the spreadsheets, where we kind of look at these players in a very emotionless way of just like, these are the numbers. This is probably his upside scenario based on his profile, where these teams do interviews with these guys. And this guy has a charismatic personality, or they just love, the presence he's exuding or how the interviews went. And they're like, we want this guy on our team. Like there's an element to that I'm sure like is impossible for us outsiders to like bake into their decision making.
Yeah, and that's another thing with like the value of a player you might not see on the production side of the thing on the field, but like in the locker room or preparation and practice, like the 3rd string quarterback that people are paying, like teams are paying like guaranteed money to 3rd string quarterbacks, and it's just like those dudes don't play a snap.
Sam Darnold got $10 million.
Oh, really?
Quarterback.
Wow. But you don't see what those dudes do behind the scenes in terms of preparation in the locker room. Like the 3rd string quarterback is extremely important for just the starter. If they can trust the guy in the room, hey, what are we seeing on this red zone cut up? Like, what do you see? What concepts do we like this week? Like that guy, the 3rd string quarterback is like giving his opinion on those things, or I mean, a good 3rd string quarterback is. So, and then I'd say, yeah, like for the running back position, like me, like I'd go in pretty much every week, watch film with Rachaad, and we'd watch blitz cut ups and talk about what the defense is trying to do. I'm not saying like I had a huge impact on last season, but like it helps to have more guys like that around the locker room. But analytics isn't going to pick that up.
Right. Well, not to shift the conversation too much, but when we last talked to you, you had just got engaged. I'm curious, like, what else have you been up to this summer other than training and getting ready to get back into football shape?
You been golfing?
Golfing a little bit. Still pretty bad. I had the round of my life, and I'm like, it's funny for people that golf, like, when you share like a crazy golf story, it's not bragging, because you can also share that like typically I'll shoot like a 102 or a 98, right. Like that's a typical round, but I shot at 87, like a legit 87. I was playing out of my mind.
That's fun.
Everything off the tee was pretty much in the fairway. I didn't lose one ball the whole round. And then I was like, man, am I good at golf now? And the next time I went out and played, I shot a 102 or 104 or something crazy.
I just played last weekend my very first round ever with one ball. I shot an 86 at a pretty nice course in St. Louis with one ball. And I was like, I was on the 18th fairway and the green was over some water. And I was like, I got to play this so safe. Like because I would be so mad to lose it on the last hole. But you got to take lessons, dude. You got to take some lessons. Obviously not now. But California, I mean, you probably can't spit without spitting on a golf instructor in California, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot of those like virtual places are popping up where they have like a couple bays with screens and they have a couple coaches there. So my friend's been doing that and he's getting a lot better. So I need to sign up. It's just like I'm in the Los Angeles area and it's like it's either like a club, a member only club, or it's like a crappy municipal course. And so I haven't got to play a ton around here, but like I'll go down. I went down to like Orange County. I played the Arroyo Trabuco course, the one that Michael Block, you remember the guy that's the PGA pro?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that course and literally like as we walk in the pro shop, he pulls up in his truck, walks in for a second, and like my buddy and I were like, "Hey, congrats, man." Nice. And then he like walked out, so we just saw him for a second. But that's a beautiful course, so I got to go down there and play. And then when I go up to like my hometown, I get to play a little bit because the courses are easier to get on up there. But yeah, I don't get to play as much. Actually, out in Tampa, there's some good courses.
I bet
around. Yeah, it's pretty easy or easier to get on. There's a ton of courses in Florida.
Nice.
Maybe you can go play with Baker.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sure he's really good. Every quarterback's good at golf.
Every quarterback is good at golf.
Didn't you have what you had told us was this when you were with Miami? Was it with Jason Sanders? You guys would be like chipping in the facilities?
Yeah. Jason's super nice at golf. He's like he can shoot like I think he's probably a couple strokes above scratch. Like he's really good.
Holy yeah. We need to get him in one of those contests like Curry and those guys did there.
You know who's really good is
the kicker match.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the match with Ryan Suckup. I was just gonna say. So he was the kicker for the Bucs last year. He's a scratch golfer. He's really good, and he's played in some like celebrity tournaments before. I think he's like won some.
Do you know what's interesting about that? ESPN, they have their like daily shorts podcast, ESPN Daily or whatever. They did one a couple weeks ago about the correlation between golf and 3-point shooting, and that they found an element of that. And I do think that the kicking thing kind of dovetails with that as well.
Very
like
similar.
The precision, how mental it is. That's a really interesting kind of through line there.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a ton of crossover between the two things mentally, and I feel like, I mean, obviously the kicking is not a part of the golf, I guess, but like just the idea of like, hey, I'm going to shape the ball a certain way in these conditions.
It's the ability to translate a physical action to space, proprioception, right? It's like that's what. So like, this is a very random example, but I was watching the MLS All-Star game last night, and they were playing against Arsenal, one of the best teams in the world from Europe, and like the Arsenal guys are not huffing and puffing. They're not physically like that much stronger or better or whatever, but their ability to understand space around them and manipulate it is on a level to that it's preternatural. It's not something that they're training into themselves. It's just that it's just a part of their being. And I bet that's the same way. Cause like Steph Curry's a really good golfer, right? And his swing is kind of wonky. It's not what you would say is like perfect, but the dude understands, like, it's like you understanding physics on like a granular level, like not even having to do the math, just understanding it.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. I was going to ask you guys what's going on in like the fantasy world. What any beefs going on between you guys and some fellow fantasy prognosticators?
Not any good beefs. I would say this is the summer of like really nerdy beefs because best ball has blown up and it's not a solved game by any means. We have such little data on it because it's a new format, relatively speaking. So there's lots of like data battles on like what's optimal to construct a team. How should you be trying to win these first place prizes? And am I missing any good beefs, Davis, beyond nerd beefs?
No, there's not really any good beefs. I mean, have we done a show together since our friend Pat won $2 million? I can't remember if we did that. Okay.
I think that because we did an early one, right? When did you get engaged, Laird?
January this year. So I think we did it.
Okay, so we had just done it. Honestly, that has sort of taken the beef edge out. Because like the sort of the thing in our very weird niche corner of the internet is like, oh, those ship chasing guys, they have all these ideas, but they never win anything. It's like, and then, well, if someone wins $2 million, it's kind of hard to say that the approach is flawed. Even if I don't know, maybe Corain's approach, maybe he just got crazy lucky and the approach actually is flawed, but no one.
What do you mean by ship chasing? Like championship chasing?
No. Yes, that's Peter's.
That clip is going in the new intro for the show. No, that's another show I do. Davis is a regular guest, and he's referencing my friend Pat, who I've been doing shows with and drafting with for like 4 to 5 years. He won Underdog's biggest tournament last year for $2 million. So like truly life-changing money. And now we have this whole bit that we call Chasing Corain, and it kind of fogs Davis and I's day-to-day life because we just are, seething with jealousy that our friend won $2 million and we didn't.
It's a hard life to live.
What's he doing with the money? Is he investing it?
He played it pretty conservative. Apparently his accountant told him he needs to play a ton of high stakes fantasy football this year, so he's doing some shot taking there. I know he's in all kinds of drafts. But yeah, I think he has some news that he needs to announce soon. It's not my news, but he launched his own site as well. So he kind of left his day job doing the entrepreneur stuff, having a lot of success with that. And I think just generally living the life, I haven't seen many posts from him lately, Davis, on Legendary Upside. I don't think he's working too hard.
Yeah, dude went to France, he's eating pastries along the River Seine. Like he's enjoying himself. I mean, he's not working at all, but he's definitely working less and enjoying himself as he should. So, one day maybe we'll get there. Maybe $2 million will slide this way, and I'll be eating pastries along a French Riviera.
Yeah, well, that's more than the average running back makes in the NFL.
There you go.
Yeah.
And wait, explain the best ball format.
Yeah, so it's, like when you do your, ESPN League or Yahoo League with your buddies, like if you hit us up with who should I add on waivers, or maybe you don't hit us up because you didn't like how we helped you with your one draft that one year, but you got to manage that team throughout the year. You got to go set the starting lineup. You got to do the trades. You got to do the ad drops. Best ball takes all of that away. So you do the draft, and then the computer optimizes your best starting lineup each week. And what that allows you to do, if you don't have to pay the piper on actually managing it, you can draft quite literally an infinite amount of teams and have no additional work on the back end. So people like me and Davis and lots of other people who love to draft but don't want to spend any time managing these teams, it's like a perfect marriage.
So it takes it selects what tight end you're going to play. It doesn't take the best tight end score from that week that you drafted.
No, it does. It does exactly that. Okay. So after the week is done, it takes your best highest scoring quarterback, your 2 highest scoring running backs, your 3 highest scoring wide receivers, highest scoring tight end, and that's your score for the week. You don't have, if someone gets hurt, tough luck, but there's no trades, there's no waivers. You draft it and you're done. You don't have to look at it or think about it.
Okay. And so for my just traditional leagues this year, I'm in 2 leagues now, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big fantasy guy.
Yeah. Who should I be looking to get, like value wise, that people might be overlooking that are just like average fantasy fans?
So I think one thing, it's because like the app Underdog, where I do most of my drafting, Davis does a ton of drafting there. It has the sharpest drafters on there. That's where there's the most volume. And so you can sometimes look at other platforms and see where players are much higher on Underdog than others. And I think that's generally like a good indication of where a player might be undervalued. Like a good one is, like Underdog drafters, myself included, are very hype on Seattle rookie wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, just because he's this insane prospect. And
I'm not really.
Yeah, it's just Davis, sip this takeout. But casuals like Davis Maddock get worried about all the other competition, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. But the real ones know that by the end of the season, JSN is going to be scorching the earth. So you can probably get a nice discount on JSN in your home league. Yeah.
Any running backs you guys are looking at?
Isaiah Pacheco, the Chiefs guy, assuming so there was just the report that your old coworker Leonard Fournette just found a new corporation to employ him. Sounds like he's probably going to go play for the Patriots. So that is a big domino to fall, because if it's just him, it's Clyde, and it's McKinnon, who they don't really want to play until the playoffs, right? They sort of save him. Tony Pollard is my favorite dude. I mean, he's not a sleeper, but I think my interpretation of this season with Tony Pollard signing the franchise tag is that they're about to give this dude like 330 touches until the Cowboys last season had 569 rushes as a team, which is the most in the NFL. And that, I mean, I don't know, maybe they do re-sign Zeke and Chuba Hubbard, Oklahoma State running back in Carolina. They signed Miles Sanders to that contract, but Miles Sanders has always kind of been a timeshare back. And their other guy is Raheem Blackshear. I don't know if you know him, but he's like he was
with the Bills originally. They drafted him, and
he was on their practice squad for a while. Very similar, actually, and then he played special teams too, kind of like you did. But I think Hubbard's pretty clearly second string, and Blackshear is third. So those are some big ones. And Kenneth Gainwell. Oh, I actually wanted to ask you about this, the DeAndre Swift thing, because this was so interesting to me from a running back's perspective, where he and his running back coach in Detroit clearly did not get along. And like, no one would deny that DeAndre Swift is super talented, right? Like, obviously he's so fast. He's so like, he can move so much, but he doesn't listen to his coaches. So they traded him. Like, how do you think that will be received in Philadelphia? Like knowing what they traded for, like what type of running back room is he going to walk into knowing that's why he got traded?
I didn't know the backstory on that. I was actually surprised when I saw that trade, because they traded him and then drafted the first round guy, or they drafted the first round guy.
Similarities too, stylistically, to like their game.
They drafted Gibbs and then traded Swift the next day.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and thinking, oh, that's interesting, because you have a guy that is a really good running back and could be an elite running back, and then you take a chance on a first round guy. Like, if that first round pick doesn't work out, then that looks like a terrible trade. So it makes sense that maybe there's something going on behind the scenes. I don't know. That's always tough. Like, sometimes guys, or you see it a lot, where a guy like is talented, but just for whatever reason does not get along with the coaching staff, isn't playing up to their potential, or believes they can have a bigger role than they currently have, and they create some issues in the building, and then they get sent somewhere else and they just have like an amazing year or amazing career. So hopefully that happens with him. It's hard for me like give an opinion, because I don't really know what went on behind the scenes, but like maybe just a fresh start will be good for him. So would that be a good value play?
Well, he was on Hard Knocks, and Deuce Staley would be like, dude, we need you to run inside. We need you to get your pad level up. Like, don't, and basically he would bounce everything outside. It's not like him and his coaches were like getting in fist fights. It was basically just like, that's not the way he prefers to run. He prefers to get out into the space, and they didn't want that. That's why they played Jamal Williams so much.
Yeah, it is tough when like a guy, when you tell him, hey, run inside, and he always wants to bounce. Like, that's a hard thing for a running back to stop doing. But yeah, you never know if like maybe the new offensive scheme will be good for him. He'll trust it. He'll trust it more. And
it kind of
you never know. You never know with those situations.
It goes back to what we were saying too, of how like I'm sure these coaches fall in love with players, and from us from the outside, like we look at DeAndre Swift's profile, we see his combine numbers, we see his production, we see a few cut-ups of him and like preseason or what he can do in a game, and you're like, this guy has everything to just be this incredible upside talent. And then we're all trying to figure out, why isn't it coming together? Why are the Lions trading him? And then you have to peel it back and be like, something's happening behind the scenes, like his relationship with the coaches or his style, the things Davis is like hinting at there. Because for us, I think that's the tough element to square. These guys who have all the talent in the world Kadarius Toney's probably another good example of this guy who, if he puts it all together, on a per target basis, is just this incredible player, but then is never out on the field enough to actually realize that. And so I think for fantasy, that's always what we struggle with, because we want these upside guys to harness it to their full potential.
Yeah, that reminds me of like just some situations I've seen. Like you'll see a guy that will make great plays, explosive, catch the ball, get 20 yards, whatever it is. And so you see those, like from the outside, you see those great plays, but then you don't see the other plays in the film room where he was supposed to run a flat route and then ran like an in or something, and the flat route was supposed to hold the defender, and then the quarterback doesn't have his read, right? Like, you're supposed to, the running back's supposed to run flat to occupy the flat defender to open up the curl behind him, but instead he ran something else or didn't get out on his route, and it messes up the whole play. And so that can stall a drive. So there's like a balance of like, hey, this guy's super explosive and can get us a first down every 5 plays, but the other 4, he's hurting the offense and dragging us down, and he's ruining other stuff. I don't know if that's the case with DeAndre Swift. I just know that's the case with some guys where they see, hey, we see this really, from the outside, we see this really athletic, great, explosive player, but they don't see the other plays where they're messing up some other concepts, or they didn't pick up a blitz. Things like that. And so it's like hard to judge those things from the outside if you don't know what the concept was supposed to be or what the play was supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, Laird, one thing before I don't want to get out of here without talking about we've had a couple challenges that have popped up that we've discussed on Twitter. It was back in the winter when I had just had our kid, and I was talking in my newsletter about, hacking together these prison workouts, doing lots of body weight stuff. And you recommended to me a 5, 10, 25 workout, which I had never heard about, which is basically how many times you can complete a circuit of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, and a quarter-mile run in 30 minutes. Each one of those 5, 10, 25 represents one circuit. You and I played a little coy with it. I would say since you introduced me to it, I've probably done it 10 or 11 times.
Oh, wow.
I have like a cat, like I basically do it once a week, just as like part of a routine, and I'll reveal like what my training one is. And then I did go to a track to do it official. I brought a friend from the ship chasing community to time me. So I think it's about time we reveal our 5, 10, 25 numbers here, Laird.
Okay. Do we want to just say the number of laps, or basically the number of like rounds we did?
Yeah.
Okay. At the same time?
So I'll just tell you this. My training one, when I do it once a week, I do the 30 minutes and I do 10 rounds easily, 3 minutes a round. That's not a lift for me. And when I went and timed it on the track, I was able to get 12. I have never sprinted the final lap as fast as I've ever sprinted in my life. It was because I saw that I could get to 12. I thought 11 was my ceiling, but I had an audience there and was pushing. And so 12 was my top. And now I'm very, very curious what yours was.
Okay. I didn't do it as much as you, but I ended up getting 14 when I went to the track and did it.
Shit.
Yeah. I
thought I was going to be one off from you. I thought you were going to get 13. God, 14 is insane.
So 14 laps around the track in 30 minutes?
3.5 miles. Look, my average heart rate is 171, so I was kind of pushing it.
That's 171 is gnarly for a professional athlete.
It's so funny, Laird, because my guess on what yours was, when I went all out and I was like, this is like the highest range of my outcomes hitting 12. I was like, I bet Laird's 13, because what people don't realize is then when you have to add an extra lap at that, you're having to shave off like another 2 minutes at least. If you do like 90-second 400 and then another 30 seconds for the pull-up push-up, you have to shave off 2 minutes from the rest of all those other ones to get an extra one in. So you getting 14 blows my mind, dude.
Yeah, I'm looking at my splits right now. So I did it on my watch. So I could track my first split, 1 minute and a half. That was probably too fast. I was thinking, wow. I was like, maybe I'll go 2 minutes a lap, but
yeah.
I ended up slowing down in the middle. So like my strategy was, I realized like instead of taking a break with the push-ups and pull-ups, I would get to the bar, or I get to the bar and just start immediately doing pull-ups and then immediately go into push-ups. And then my rest was like on the first like half of the lap. So if I was gonna like slow down, it was gonna be while I was jogging or running. And then towards the end, once I had like 10 minutes left, I just got out and just started running around the track as fast as I could.
I had the same strategy, but I did it on the backside. So I walked, say, the last like 10th of the quarter mile to the pull-up bar in the push-up. So I used it as a relaxing, because I would sprint the lap, and then instead of going the full quarter mile, stopping and catch my breath, I would stop early, walk, catch my breath with my hands over my head. And then the second I did the push-ups, pull-ups, I was off running with no break and took the break on the back end.
Yeah. I didn't slow down at the end of the laps. I would just start immediately, step on the track and just start running around. And then like when I felt like I could like kind of pick it up, I just would start picking it up on the track. But I knew just if I took 10 seconds every time I stopped to do push-ups or pull-ups, like that would just add up really fast.
So
it's a good workout. So the spread that people were saying online was kind of crazy. They're like, because like the difference between what I kind of forget what people said, but they're like, yeah, he'll beat you by like 4.
Davis, I think, said 4. I think, which is honestly fair. Like my baseline being 10, like that I can just do pretty easily. But a lot of people, I think, we're just not doing the plain math on like a 400-meter run. Like takes time. Like that at minimum is probably going to take you $1.15 to $1.30, even if you're absolutely cooking. So that was the thing I think people were struggling with. But what's so funny, Laird, is if I gave you a true line, what my true line was, is I thought you should have been -1.5 laps. I would have lost money, because I think I would have bet on myself to have gotten, if I got 12, I would have been like, I think Laird can get 13, but I don't think he can get 14. But based on everyone else's lines, like the 2.5 to 3.5, I definitely would have covered that spread.
The man is a professional athlete. I would have bet on him. I would have bet on Pat, regardless of the line.
You would have. But I'm saying you would have lost.
I would have.
Spread. Yeah.
But I'm not an endurance athlete though. Like what I have to train for, this is something I like to do like early in the off season. Like I haven't done this in months because I just don't think it's helpful for me. There's like no reason I should be running 3.5 miles.
What's your resting heart rate? Minutes. Is it sub 40?
Let me see.
Probably not sub 40.
It's been in like the 48 I was gonna say today.
40. I was gonna guess 47. What about your VO2 max? Do you know that?
Would that be on my watch?
It would be on your watch, but probably wouldn't be like super accurate. I bet your VO2 max is nutty because you do so much sprinting for football stuff. Like I bet your VO2 max is probably in the 50s, which is gnarly. Like that's really good.
My like resting heart rate is around like 45 like this past week.
Yeah, dude. That's oh man.
How do you test the VO2 max?
Well, your phone, your watch can make a guess based off your respiration and your height and your weight, but to really do it, you would probably have to go into your strength and conditioning staff could do it for you. You have to run with a respirator on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I have no idea.
You should do it. I mean, that's look, they can't take that information away from you after you retire. Like it's good to know all that stuff just for like longevity in general.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
The other thing, Laird, now that I had done the 5, 10, 25 a bunch, and I assume you feel similarly, like the whole part of the challenge is the running part, because like the pull-ups and the push-ups are like just completely negligible as far as it's just like stopping. In a way, it kind of is like giving you a chance to catch your breath. I was thinking if you did like a 10, 20, 25 challenge, like if you doubled the pull-ups or the push-ups, that's where I think it really, because I wasn't gassed after doing 5 pull-ups, but if you got me to 10 pull-ups each round, I think I really start to feel those effects the rest of the way. Whereas for me, it's just the 400-meter basically pacing.
Yeah, that's the running is the hardest part. Yeah, if it was 10, I think after like round 5 or 6, I would have to drop from the pull-up bar. I'd probably shoot for 6 reps, drop, and then do 4 more, and then bust out 20 push-ups for maybe,
mix it up.
I don't know, like 7, 8 rounds. And then after like the 8th round, I'd probably have to break up the push-ups too. So that would be interesting. You probably wouldn't get that many rounds done in 30 minutes.
No.
Pull-ups are too hard for me. I've like a horrible form with them. Like I can deadlift twice my body weight, but I can't do more than like 3 pull-ups. It's too hard.
You should if you're struggling with pull-ups, have you tried dead hangs?
Yeah, I can dead hang. That's a Huberman thing. Is like everyone should be able to dead hang for at least 60 seconds.
Yeah, I used to struggle with pull-ups, and I used to just do 60 seconds every day of dead hangs, and it just like my pull-ups just got so much better. I feel like a lot of people just don't go down all the way with pull-ups, and then they're weakest at like the most stretched position.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me, because the other thing, I should pull this up. There was Jason Strasser, who people in our communities know. He's a big, I think, like equity options trader.
He's been on the Takecast.
Oh yeah, he's been on Davis's show. Let me pull this up because he had put this thing up on Twitter a while back. Why can't I get
it's Peter. That's so funny you said that, because I went to go find this too. Because this one is. I think there is one answer that would be easiest for me, and then one answer that would be easiest for everyone else in the world.
So for the audio listeners here, Jason's tweet said, "What's harder? 4 sets of 10 pull-ups, no kipping." That's like a CrossFit thing where you're using momentum to like help you. 6:10 mile on a track, bench 225 once. Jason saying I can't do any of these, but he's richer than all of us, so it's okay. So I was very curious to see, Laird, and when you revealed yours, what shocked me, I was super impressed by your mile, and I actually thought you would be able to bench 225 more than 6 times.
Really?
Because I told optimizing for that.
Yeah. Well, I told you guys before, like, since I got a shoulder, so I broke my collarbone my last game of my college career, and then I hurt my shoulder my rookie year. Nothing that like kept me out. It's just kind of like been this lingering thing. So I haven't been able to bench more than 225 since my senior year of college. And this offseason is the first time I've benched 225 since college.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So I've just been starting to get like the last like year and a half that my shoulder strength has started to come back. And so like I was surprised I did it 6 times. I was just feeling good that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew the mile and the pull-ups I could do easily. I was kind of unsure about the 225 thing. So I was happy with the 6 times.
Yeah, I wish I would have done this right when I had been doing all the training for the 5:10 25, because that was in the best, and then I had a little dip there. I did 6:11 mile, 225 by 3, and 4 by 10 pull-ups. The pull-ups are the easiest of all of these for me because I've just been doing those a ton. I think I could get up my 225 and my mile down under 6, but they are, like Davis was saying, they're optimizing for really different things, but this kind of stuff lends itself to how I train, which is a lot of like functional training, hit stuff, like trying to still have good cardio versus strength, and trying to kind of like have my cake and eat it too with a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like in the inverse order of you guys for optimizing for training. So like I could get to 225 like if I don't know, like if I took like one cycle of testosterone, I could do it. I've done 205 twice, and then just it's like a mental thing. Like I can move 225 pounds with my arms. Like I do it on the incline press with where it's all there. It's just the mental block of doing it, and I can run at a 6 mile pace. No problem. I just can't. Obviously, I cannot sustain it for an entire mile. Or to me, that would be like freaky to be able to do. So I could get there with, I think, probably a month of like actually like cardio training instead of just like incline walking, which is really what I do. But then the pull-ups, I feel like would just be impossible for me because I'm so the opposite of training functionally. Like I'm doing all like bodybuilding type exercises pretty much. So like all kettlebell stuff or whatever, like I don't do any of that. So I just would be worse at that. It would take me longer to get there.
These challenges that made me think, like, what's like a set of like 5 to 10 physical things I could do in one day that no one else could do in the world? Like there's is there a 5 or 10 different things?
If you start adding skilled stuff in there, like if you made it make a par on a par 3, knock over an NFL safety, like something like that. It's like there are a permutation of those things that truly only Patrick Laird could do, no doubt.
Well, I was thinking kickflip, because I can kickflip.
Wow.
Backflip, like run a mile in 6 minutes, bench 225 or something, and then like squat 315 like 20
How fun
times
would
or
it
something.
be if there was like an actual database, and obviously it would be impossible for this to exist, and you could like filter base that, and then you see like, okay, there's 1 million people in the world who can run a sub 6 mile, and then you add this and it goes down to 100,000, and then it's down to 10, and then you keep adding something. You're like, no, I am the only person in the world who could do
exactly
all night. Well, it kind of goes back to like how some players, right, like optimize and train for specific combine things. Like you see a guy like JSN, right, who just absolutely annihilated the agility drills. He knew that was going to be how his bread got buttered, and then waited to do, I think, the 40 until his pro day. Didn't do it at the combine.
And then Bryce Young was like, all I'm gonna do is eat. All I'm gonna do after my college career is done is I'm gonna eat and then do no other drills. I'm just gonna take it easy for 2 months.
What do you end up getting? What did that guy get on the agility thing? On the agility drill?
Smith-Jigba? Oh, it was like almost the record, I think, for the whole times.
I think mine was like 3.8.
Yours was really good.
It wasn't.
No, yours was really good.
There's people definitely have like 3.7s, which is.
He was. So this is the JSN. Which one were we looking at?
The shuttle.
393.
No, he probably did better. If it was like elite, he probably did better than that.
So he was 393, but his 3 cone was 6.5, and then you add those two numbers together, and that's what gives you.
6.5 3 cone that's really elite.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my 20-yard shuttle. No, my 3 cone was 6.9.
Nice.
His 3 cone was 6.57 is crazy. That's crazy. Anything under 7 they say is good, but to go 6.57, that's elite.
And how much of that do you, because obviously there's inherent athleticism and skill, but how much of that do you think you could shave off just by training that deal and optimizing for the best possible 3 cone time?
I think practice will definitely help, but at a certain point, like your change of direction, it's going to be a good measure of like your change of direction and like body control going in and out of cuts. A guy could probably start training like a 7.4 and get down to like with no other like training, get down to like a 7.0 with practice. But a 7.4 guy is not going to get down to like 6.8 without actually getting better at change of direction and being like more athletic.
Well, and it's like anything too, when you're getting up to the upper limits of what the human body can do, like it would be fairly easy for me to shave 15 seconds off my mile time with like a month of training. But then you ask, an Olympic miler, like they could maybe get like 1 second shaved off, would be like just the peak of their career. It's just insane how those margins get so tight.
Right.
Patrick, super stoked for you this season, heading into another year of NFL action. Always love getting together with you here. Davis, any final words before we get out of here?
We didn't talk. Give me the best book you've read since the last time we talked, Pat.
Oh, okay. My books have been kind of like hit or miss. I think I've only done like 10 or so this year. I got my list pulled up. Did I tell you, last time we talked about it, the Benjamin Franklin biography?
Yeah, you mentioned that one.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's like probably my favorite nonfiction I read this year. If you guys are looking for like a good fiction book, I've read like a couple like mystery thrillers this year. But my favorite one is called Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. He's a Australian author.
I do love
it's
a good
like
murder mystery.
Yeah. So it's a murder mystery, but it's very like meta, where the narrator is a author that writes books on how to write murder mysteries. But then he finds himself in a situation where he has to solve a murder mystery, and so it's called Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone.
Book?
What is it?
Raymond Chandler.
No, I don't think so.
He wrote like a bunch, like these like 1940s LA, like hard-boiled noir fiction. I read all his books in like the last year. They're super
okay.
That's my best murder mystery ever, for sure.
So my second favorite murder mystery one I did this year is called Everybody Knows by Jordan Harper, and that's a crime noir book set in LA.
Yeah.
And so I'm living in Los Angeles, and like I kind of like knew a lot of the places that he was talking about.
It's so
and
good.
So that was a good one.
Those are always fun too when you know the like location of a book. Like after I did my Europe trip, I like loved reading books about any of the places I had visited. I haven't gotten to do a ton of reading lately. The one I finished recently is The Wager by David Grann. He is the guy who did like The Lost City of Z, and he's done a lot of like kind of adventure type nonfiction, historical nonfiction, and it's getting turned into a movie with Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. And he had also wrote another movie that they have coming out, Flowers of the Sun Moon, which is also having Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio about Indians back in the day too. So I highly recommend that one. It's about a British warship that gets abandoned and basically the fallout of all the men on this ship in the 1700s.
That sounds good. I'm definitely gonna check that one out because I love Leo. Every movie he's in, I watch.
Yeah, that movie. These movies are gonna be good.
Number one book I'm touting right now is Outlive by Peter Attia. It's sort of like my Bible of do you know Peter Attia? Do you know who that is?
I'm so annoyed with all these live forever dudes online.
No. So that's legit, right? Like the guy who claims to have like reversed his aging and like blood swaps with his son, Brian Johnson. That's totally legit. Peter Attia is a medical doctor who still practices, who still sees patients. Was a surgeon at Johns Hopkins. Like this is not a longevity bro who like started a greens powder company and thinks he has the secret. It's all very legit. And I've read all this. I know bad health and fitness stuff, right? Because I read all of it. This to me, it's the gold standard of if it's something you're interested in and you do want to live longer and you want to know what stops you from living longer and what's preventable and what isn't, it's my number one. I'm giving it out as gifts and stuff too, because like it's legit. It's very good. So that's that's maybe maybe I'll send you a copy, Pat.
I'm gonna start with The Wager.
Laird just he doesn't need to read a book about it. You know, he's living his life out here doing 14 laps, 5, 10, 25. So I think he's on his the trajectory to live forever. You're doing all the right things.
I'm optimizing, enjoying every day.
I love it.
It's a great way to live.
There you go. If that would, if we didn't live in an SEO clickbait era, I could put that as the title of this, optimize to enjoy every day. But, you know, we'll have to do something more salacious than that to get people to click this, Pat. Like Patrick Laird threatens to hold out this season, you know?
Okay.
Just kidding. I won't do that to you. Anything else you'd like to plug here before we head out?
No, I don't think so. Enjoy talking to you guys. Everybody follow Davis and Peter on social media. Listen to the TakeCast. Listen to what was the other one?
Ship
Chasing.
Yeah, thank you for all the plugs. What about have you been doing your reading club again?
Oh yeah. So if anybody in the Bay Area wants to earn some tickets to some Cal football games, you can sign up for the Cal Bears Reading Challenge. Just put it in Google and sign up and get your kids to read.
There you go. I'll drop the link.
Appreciate that.
Down below. Davis, for anything for the TakeCast listeners?
No, nothing special coming. Actually, I have a pretty cool show coming up in 2 weeks, but I can't talk about it yet. But it's gonna be it's a version of the episodes that people really like. The nerds really like these.
Okay. All right. Is Peter Attia coming on?
Oh my God. Can you imagine if one of these longevity bros actually came on the show with me? It would be like 6 hours of me being like talking about B vitamins with them.
Come on, Davis, you could get a guy like Attia. I don't think you could get Huberman at this point, but you could probably get Attia.
I mean, anyone I've said I want on the program, I have reached out to in one way or the other, right? Like I haven't been like beating down the doors of like their publicists, but like I've started to try and do it. And like you would not think about it, but people who host a very successful podcast are, I mean, those are famous people now in our day and age. Like they really are. Like it's hard to get 45 minutes of someone that big's time.
Yeah, just because there's a million people asking them for 45 minutes of that
Yes.
time, which is why we so much appreciate our NFL athlete friend, Patrick Laird, giving us more than 45 minutes of his time. We appreciate you, Patrick. Good luck this season. We'll be rooting for you. We need to see you on the field, finding the end zone. For Davis, I'm Pete.